It is 1st of May, 2025, 8:35 p.m. So I just wanted to quickly flesh out my Threshold Guardians a bit better. Um, I don't really like the phone. So there's 4: Futuros, Economicus, Reflexio, and Materna. These 4 represent what it takes for me to basically move into a different path if I choose to, if I'm worthy of it. Which I'm still convicted, you know. And just to start off, and just to summarize, Threshold Guardians are basically things that prevent me from leaving the comfort zone, going through ego death, in some sense. But they're not necessarily evil, right? They're there to protect me from preventing harm from myself for crossing a threshold, or that they're actually there to teach me, to give me a reminder as I move on to the threshold. So devils to many, gods to some. And I give them names, I give them character, symbolism, so that it is more interesting, and starting off with Futuros. Futuros represents the what ifs, my fear of failure, the fear that I end up wasting my time more, right, by choosing this path. Because, I already feel like I'm wasting my time. But first thing to know is that Futuros is an anxiety, not reality. It's about the future. It's all in my head. And the other thing is that the whole point of me trying to cross the threshold, move into a different career or life or project or whatever goal, is that I'm wasting my life in the first place. I've noticed that. And that if I am going towards a goal that is honest to myself and is true to myself, how can that be wasteful? It doesn't matter if I fail. It's about me actually doing it. And so that is how I guess I don't know if you would call it accept in this case, but I agree to Futuros. And I came up with this whole, each Threshold Guardian gives me, not Materna. Materna is a bit different, but the first 3 at least gives me a symbolic gift, an amulet of sorts. And Futuros gives me, and these are common symbolic items to also represent how I want to go more into creative writing, storytelling. And it's the iconic Philosopher's Stone. And why Philosopher's Stone? Well, one, it's the object that brings about immortality, right? And in some sense, you could say that what makes life truly immortal is actually, a life that has well spent. in a sense. Like, it's that giving value to life that brings life meaning. It's immortal when it has meaning. Um, it's not wasted. That's the point. It's not wasted. And in that sense, it's immortalized. And elixir, it's all about turning life into something good. And the philosopher's stone is also known to turn things into gold. Anything into gold, I think, or iron or whatever. But the idea is transmutation. That this amulet, the philosopher's stone, is a reminder that even if I'm afraid of failure, my whole point of crossing this threshold is to give life meaning, right? To do something that's true to myself. So it doesn't matter if I fail. That failure turns into gold because I'm still living the life well spent. So that's why it's the philosopher's stone. It transmutes into gold. A failure into gold, basically. And then the next one, Economicus. And I forgot the visuals. The futuros is, all three are basically a strong reflection of me. And futuros is a bit younger, looks a bit younger than me in my image. Hunchback, fiddling, anxiety driven. And oh yes, and his power is infection of anxiety. His power is bacterium, anxiety that spreads like bacteria throughout my veins. I have to stop it before it continues. But also, I try to use this like more metaphorical power, I guess, that is least grounded in reality, because I see futuros is the most abstract in a sense, and therefore like most abstract, most simply within my mind, that it's also the easiest one to sort of conquer. Next one, it gets more realistic, is Economicus. He poses a true problem, which is how am I gonna sustain my finances? And Futuros looks very much like me right now when I go to work. He has a suit on. He does networking. He works on Excel, computer. He socializes because it's strategic. And Economicus has a sort of confidence, a confidence that is more performative, because it's an important tool to build wealth, to build your own economic stability. And Economicus is saying, what are you doing? What is going on? He points to the fact that for the past few years, you have been stressing about money, always thinking about rent and food. And now that you have the chance to actually move on, you're going back into that. You're plunging back into that. Like, what is going on? And then I think the important thing Economicus points out to me is about freedom, peace, emancipation. That money isn't really about Economicus being greedy or, materialistic. Economicus points out to me that money is a tool to achieve something I hold dear, which is freedom. And in a sense, I want to move towards this career because of freedom. So there's this paradox going on. And there's a lot of truth to that, by surrendering my chance to be financially stable, maybe even wealthy, I need to go back to living, the shameful return to the nest, which I don't really like because of the lack of freedom I have, and all that. But I think the reality is that I think the point here is that it's a bit different way of conquering from Fruturos. Is I have to look at Economicus and say, I completely agree with you that going in this new pathway doesn't mean I throw away what I learned. I throw away the complete concept of money, although it's going to be a struggle. I tell Economicus, I'm going to be wise with my money. I'm going to still continue, keeping track of my money. I am also going to dedicate some time into marketing, possibly, so that, I have to have some sort of realism with this career. Although, important thing, I really, really don't want to be a sellout, because then that kind of loses the whole point of everything. Yeah. And I think that's the important takeaway from Economicus. And then also, at the core of it, which I keep repeating, is freedom, 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 emancipation and peace. And that's something I cannot forget, that despite plunging myself back into this, I would call this deluge of capitalism, of the system, I'm not trying to stay there. It's only a step. And I'm going to work towards rising up against the flood. I won't drown, basically. That I'm working towards not drowning. I will continue to do that. And because of that, the amulet that Economicus gives me is a dove with a dry olive branch. And in the Bible, this represents the end of the flood of Noah's Ark, or the Noah's Ark story, where a dove comes back with an olive branch in its mouth and it's dry, representing that there's dry land now. And one, like the dove in general, represents freedom. It represents kind of peace, emancipation. That's what I want from financial struggles. But also, I think it's a good metaphor for representing the deluge story of that, well, according to Campbell, it's kind of the opposite of the hero's journey, right? It's not about a hero attaining power, but power crushing down onto the individual people, and the individuals trying to survive, and kind of represents the strife, the spirit of trying to survive, the spirit of humans of trying to survive. And that's what really the dove and the olive branch represents. that, you know, that the plunging into the flood for me isn't the end goal. It's not, I understand that. And then there's part of me that believes that completely devoiding of monetary concepts is the most virtuous thing. To pursue art for the sake of art and never for money. That would be amazing, but that's a little too unrealistic, you know. Although I think this few years has taught me that I really don't need too much money, that I kind of already have what I really need. I don't need anything else anymore. I wear the same clothes, you know, I barely go out that much, you know. I try to say, I always try to get my meals to be like less than €1 each. Like, that's how much I try to be frugal, you know. And I really try to avoid indulging in consumerism. Like, I really don't do it. Ironically, talking through a phone, but this is like what I got. I think my mom bought me back in 11th grade, 10th grade. This is the same one I'm using. I think the next one I'll go back to a flip phone because I think I'm done with smartphones. But my point is, that I plunge in, but I aim to eventually get out of the flood again. But through a sort of different cleansing, you know, I go through a different baptism. I'm putting too many layers of metaphor here, but basically, I think my point gets across that I'm not gonna forget about the pursuit of freedom and emancipation at the cost of being too honest to truth to myself. I think I need to strike a good balance. And that's what Economicus teaches me. A third one, Reflexio, is by far the most challenging on Terma Materna, but compared to Futuros and Economicus, Reflexio is a very challenging guardian. He is a crone. I see him as a hooded figure, and he holds a large oval mirror, big enough that he can hide behind. And basically, Reflexio is a whisperer, right? Almost similar to Futuros, but it's less of a infection, more of a complete warp of reality. What Reflexio does is he sort of vanishes behind the mirror, and what is left is me and the mirror. And it puts me in a position where I question myself, that is this goal real? He vanishes behind the mirror even to question if he is real, if all the guardians I just talked about even exist, or that this goal is just my immature outburst at the face of adulthood. And the thing is, it's sort of true that that reality is I have a job. I can, and I am working towards it. If I work hard enough, I could probably extend my contract or find a new job, continue working, and build a career around biology. But that is also, in a sense, the weight of illusion is almost equal to the weight of illusion of my goal I want to pursue. In the sense that at the end of the day, they were both founded on beliefs. It was about me striving towards it. I believe that a biology career is more lucrative, more grounded. So that's why I focused on that to study. That's why I went to networking events of life science industries. I got a Bachelor of Science because that seemed more grounded. But how much of everything just seems that way and you just make it into reality? And that's the whole point of Reflexio telling me that sure, it could be just this psychological phenomenon in the face of this work culture, of what a lot of people call the real world. But the real world is just, real because people say it's real. If I actually strategize, work hard on this real dream I have, who's to say it doesn't become a reality? And what basically Reflexio teaches me or advises me to do is that I can't keep just dreaming. I have to actually do. I am doing something, but I have to continue doing something. I have to strategize. I have to make a plan. I have to set goals, I have to do research. I have to do work so that reality, the dream becomes a reality. That illusion becomes tangible. That's what Reflexio teaches me. But it's very hard because it's something that I keep going back and forth sometimes that, wait, maybe I just have a weird existential crisis or an outburst. And then I think, wait, no, this is true because I've been feeling this way for ever since I was a kid. And it hasn't gone away. Technically, I even took a minor for film and arts because I had this desire. So, it's not just an illusion already, and so what Reflexio provides me is the roots of Yggdrasil. The idea is, and my image is like a cut off stump. A stump that was plucked out. So it's like roots and there's part of the bottom of the tree. And the idea here is that to, reach into all these imaginative worlds, either as my dream or in the fictional worlds I make, to connect them or pull them into reality, I first need to have a strong root in the ground that connects these worlds, or for me to connect to these worlds instead of just being out there. And that's why it's the roots of Yggdrasil. And that's the amulet I received. So yeah, that's the 3 guardians. And then Materna, this is the most least metaphorical one, although there's an aspect of the internal guardian, but also she is the amalgamation of the 3 guardians, and also the more realistic, which makes her not just a threshold guardian, but the first trial on the road of trials. She swings both sides. Oh, that's weird. But she's, I guess, both sides. In a sense, it's weird because I really don't like the idea that, um, you know, a parent dictates how your future is. But in a sense, I mean, also, if I'm not going to be financially able to sustain myself, I need to have a place to live that provides me food. I mean, that's all I'm asking for. And Wi-Fi, I guess. I need to upload my art somewhere, right? And connect somehow. Um, but I guess, in a sense, I need to. But even then, I think there's something there that I need to sort of convince or persuade, not in a sort of combative, but I have to be understanding, and that's the challenge I have to go through. Luckily, my other side of the family is a lot more understanding because I guess, you know, more of the not very strict Eastern ideology, but we'll have to see. But it's not just cultural. I understand it's not just cultural. But yeah. But yeah, basically, that's the Futuros, Economicus, and Reflexio. And I do want to point out that the amulet I receive are all not, even in these imaginations, they're not like real versions of it. Like the Philosopher's Stone is a cheap red stone that maybe it's not even translucent, you know. The dove and the olive branch, I mean, a dove you can find pretty easily. I mean, when I was volunteering at a bird shelter for a bit, and you get pigeons and doves, and you put a olive branch on it. The image I see is Economicus gives me the bird. It doesn't fly away that soon, but the first thing it does is it opens its mouth and drops the olive branch, making it seem like it's a very fake or like a replica or a simulation of the real symbolic dove and the olive branch. And then the roots of Yggdrasil, they're not even that big because it, like Reflexio just cut off a small tree, plucked it out, and said, here, there's still soil and dirt on it. It gives me the roots of Yggdrasil. And then the whole idea behind all this like fake symbolism is that they only have power because I believe in it, because I say it's symbolic. I think that's the whole point of, in a sense, that's a lot of the, not the whole point, but a lot of the points of, you know, the hero's journey. But also, well, yeah, also story, but I'm kind of repeating myself, but story, myth, and I think having some understanding of semiotics, symbolism kind of becomes everything. That it's symbolism that gives meaning, you know. It's the meaning making that makes meaning. And when we put meaning into something, it becomes reality. And it's my pathway, like how I deal with Reflexio. It's this meaning making I do that will bring my goal into fruition. And that's what I see in my crossing of the threshold. And I really hope things keep moving forward. The two things I'm working on right now is Blender and reading A Hero with a Thousand Faces, if it wasn't obvious. But I think the next thing I'm gonna do, I have 4 months left until my contract ends. I still want to prove to myself right now that I have what it takes for myself. So I don't like networking that much, but I'm gonna try to find a group of a community or something that has filmmakers and all that, and see where I can go from there and build something to at least show, instead of coming back home to my mom saying, well, I became a hippie, and which I didn't, but I don't want to sound like a hippie, you know. I want someone with like actual tangible dream. That's it.